Hello, you're watching part 2 of a 3-part episode. If you haven't already seen the first episode, then I'll probably put a link in the description so you can check it out. Alright? If you have already seen it, then keep watching and enjoy. So, in addition to art games, there are also a lot of puzzle and adventure games too, such as Escape Plan. Not to be confused with the movie that came out around the same time, this game was made by Funbits Interactive, who also helped develop Fat Princess. It was once a PS Vita exclusive, but was later ported to the PS4. This game is set in a black and white color scheme, but the graphics are very crisp and they look very nice. So you control two things named Lil and Larg, and they are trying to escape from an evil laboratory, controlled by another thing called Bakuki. The puzzles are mostly logic or physics based, and both the characters have different movesets to help each other progress. Lil can inflate himself with helium and float away, while Larg can smash through walls and floors. There is also a big focus on touch controls. You tap the front touchscreen on the Vita to move and interact with stuff, while the rear touchpad pushes some platforms out and distracts enemies. The PS4, on the other hand, lets you control this small little crosshair to interact with stuff while still utilizing the button controls, as well as the controller's touchpad thing. The game is very fun, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. Cartoon sound effects play when you explode, and there's even a counter to how many times you've died displayed on the characters to advise further caution. But the only thing is that after 99 deaths, the counter turns into a permanent skull and crossbones, so that enjoyment doesn't last forever. Each stage rates you on a 1 to 3 star rating depending on how many times you've touched the screen or how long you took. It's okay, but I really don't have much of an opinion on it. Despite that criticism, the puzzles are very challenging at times, but not to a point of giving up entirely. There are even a bunch of DLC levels to keep the action going, so, as a whole, it's a great little title that's just as sweet as freedom. Continuing the trend of Vita exclusives, there's also a fun little indie game called Metrico. If you want puzzle games, there isn't one more puzzling on the Vita than Metrico. This game was actually published and developed by Digital Dreams, but I won't exclude it just for that. The game starts up with no story, but I like to assume that a late-night paper pusher fell asleep on their desk, and the game is just one big elaborate dream. So you play as a man or a woman as you explore a side-scrolling level layout composed mostly out of bar graphs and pie charts. These bars and lines will move in response to how much the player walks and jumps. That's pretty cool, but it becomes more precise later on, and much more challenging. As you succeed in each puzzle, the game will display how far you are in completing the level. Later puzzles involve firing pellets using the rear touchpad, gyroscope platforming, and even color-based puzzles where you have to point the camera at red, green, or blue objects. These puzzles can be mind-bendingly frustrating, but it has those special moments when you finally figure it out that make the experience rewarding. The level design is beautiful, and the soundtrack that accompanies them is alright. At the end of each level, you are given a choice between one of two doors to enter. I'm not really sure what it's supposed to do, but it still connects to the overall theme by using a pie chart of which selection you made. The game is a little convoluted, but it never made me give up or lament how much money I spent. It just made me more obsessed with trying to figure it out, so if you like puzzle games, then I'm sure you will be satisfied with this one. Another favorite of mine is a little game called Counter Spy. You know, when I was a kid I dreamt about being a spy, but I quickly gave it up as soon as reality struck. Even though this game is also available for iOS and Android, it is still owned by Sony, so I'll still say it counts. Anyways, this game takes place during the Cold War, but the US and Russia are called the Imperialists and the Socialists. Neither one is held as the real bad guy, so the focus is mostly given to the humorous satire. The spy has to sneak around the bases and collect intel from them and ultimately stop their sinister plan to blow up the moon. Why do they want to do this? I really have no idea. So the game is set as a 2D side-scroller on a 3D plane. There is also a strong emphasis on stealth, but you can also unlock shotguns and assault rifles for hairy situations, in case you want to go in guns a-blazing. You can also unlock new weapons and abilities by blowing up hidden safes scattered throughout the levels. The big catch is that you can't be detected for too long or else your notoriety will rise, and if that happens too much, then the countdown will begin and you'll have to rush to the end. You can lower your notoriety by aiming your gun at white coat officers, and there is a displayed number on how many you can find in a single level. What's really cool about this game is that each time you play, the appearance of the level layout is randomized, so it's different every time. Safes and other such collectibles are in different locations, so you'll have to go exploring outside the general level layout in order to find them. The difficulty can ramp up at times and get a little tense, but I can't really fault the game for that. The only fault I can give it is that you have to collect 25 pieces of intel in order to unlock the final level, and once you do that, there's no way to return to the game without starting a new one. You'll still have all your weapon blueprints, but you'll need to buy them again when you begin on a new difficulty level. Besides that, it's a lot of fun. Plus, the art direction, perspectives, and soundtrack are very fitting for the era. Play it if you haven't already. However, if you're more into story-driven puzzle games, we have ones like Rain for that. So Rain takes place in sort of a 19th century Paris location, where a boy and a girl who are both invisible can only be seen in the rain, but strange monsters simply called the Unknown attack and chase the girl through the alley while the boy runs after them. The rest of the story slowly unfolds as you progress further into the city. From there, I won't spoil any more plot details. Since the boy is only visible in the rain, this adds a lot of stealth elements. For example, if he hides under awnings, he will become invisible again and will be able to hide from enemies. You can't fight, so your only hope is to run and sneak past the creatures, and this is actually pretty enjoyable. I usually complain about hiding from overpowered enemies, but here it actually really works. I never felt belittled, but always cautious. A small part of my enjoyment came from, once again, the level design. Seriously, it's got sort of a soothing but slightly dismal feel, and the colors of the water look lovely as well. The cutscenes appear as watercolor paintings, and this artistic design was by far one of the game's best features. The gameplay can get a little repetitive, but the experience is by far too charming to become dull. Overall, it's a nice little game. I'd easily recommend at least one playthrough. Concluding the theme of action puzzle games, here's one that's musical. Sound Shapes is a platforming game set in a beautiful and musical world. In fact, the gameplay sort of reminds me of Super Meat Boy, the way in which you jump around and stick to surfaces, but thankfully Sound Shapes is much easier and fun. You play as this eyeball thing, and you move around the world collecting these little circular collectibles which get the musical beat going. Of course you don't have to collect these, but that's only if you're the type of person who eats toast without jam. The scenery and hazards also make music, so all these things come together to make very catchy rhythms. The vocals for some of the levels are done by known musicians such as Beck and I Am Robot and Proud. The artwork was even inspired by the works of Pixel Jam, Pyramid Attack, Super Brothers, and many more. The game also has a very in-depth level editor, so you can build your own levels to post online so other players can play. So with its gorgeous design, awesome music, and great online community, you can't help but to fall in love with it. Play it if you haven't already. Well, that was fun. But wait a minute. There are so many more games out there. So many strange and unknown ones. Well, join me next time, and we're going to look at the really odd ones that everyone seems to enjoy.